Got it. Today, we're talking about how you can continue to be part of the Courageous community as we enter year 2 of the Courageous Rhode Island initiative. That means we're talking about being courageous now, stepping outside of our echo chambers and comfort zones and turning ideas into action. But before we begin, as always, we ask a question. To those of you who were with us for our last program called Falling Down the Rabbit Hole, here's our question for those of you who were there. Over the past 2 weeks, did you find yourself applying what you learned about how to support people who may be moving towards radicalization? If you didn't attend last time, just check NA for not applicable. We'll leave that up for a little bit longer as people answer. And thank you for answering this question. So in that program, Falling Down the Rabbit Hole, we learned how to identify signs of radicalization, and we discovered the power of kindness and listening as small ways to intervene and support individuals who get drawn into networks of disinformation, propaganda, and hate. You can see that we're redesigning our Courageous Conversation program to include all kinds of materials that will help you replicate these programs with people in your community and with learners of all ages. We'll keep working on these revisions in July and August and have everything ready for you by September 1st. Over to you, Yamaya.
Great, thanks so much, Pam. Hi, everyone. I'm Yamaya from the Media Ed Lab. It's great to see you all today. I'm here to remind you all about our Gold Star program that we have. So the last opportunity to have received a Gold Star was at our last Courageous Conversation event called Falling Down the Rabbit Hole. But there is still another chance to earn one last Gold Star if you complete our post test. And we have extended the deadline until tomorrow at 9 a.m. I will drop a link in the chat the second I'm done talking, so you can go ahead and take that if you haven't already. In order to be eligible for this last Gold Star, you need to have taken the pre-test survey that we sent out for the first 6 Courageous Conversations events. This is now closed. And then you have to attend at least one Courageous Conversation event, which most of you already have if you're here at the Ripple event. And then with that, you will get the last Gold Star and a $50 gift card. So those gift cards will be going out later this week. You should be receiving an email if you got them. And if you believe that you should have received a Gold Star in the past, but you haven't yet, please go ahead and private message me and include your email in that message, and I'll look into it and get back to you after the program. I will drop the link in the chat right now for the post test. And over to you, Catherine.
All right, thanks, Yamaya. Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine from the Media Education Lab. And so today's focus question is action-oriented. And the question is, what actions can you take to counteract violent extremism in your community using the power of media literacy, active listening, and dialogue and discussion? So before we get started, we want to ask you a question, and I hope you'll answer. On a scale of 1 to 7, how confident do you feel about taking action to help to counteract violent extremism using the power of media literacy, active listening, and dialogue and discussion?
This is a 1 to 7 scale, so you might have to scroll down to find the 7 for those of you who are so very confident. That's great. You can keep answering as you need to. So in that last program, we also put forward 4 key ingredients. What we at Courageous Rhode Island believe are the core components of a whole of society approach to preventing targeted violence and terrorism. Catherine, what did we start with?
First, we start with active listening. It's all about listening with an open heart. the kind of listening that's not motivated by a need to persuade someone, but to understand them. Many of you have practiced this important listening skill as members of Courageous Conversations.
That's right. And the second component was media literacy. Media literacy is a key competency that helps prevent extremism because media literacy emphasizes asking critical questions about media and the importance of getting exposure to a variety of different points of view. Many of you have also practiced your media literacy skills in analyzing media and also recognizing your own filter bubbles and blind spots during our courageous conversations over the last few months.
Yeah, I know I've practiced that. And third, it's important to exploit the power of random acts of kindness, the pay it forward mentality of being generous, including to people you don't know. Research has demonstrated that when extremists encounter people outside their group who exhibit kindness and generosity to them, it destabilizes their hate. Because it's hard to hate someone who's been gracious, kind, or generous to you. And we can see that many of you have shown kindness to others who are participating in courageous conversations in your small group discussions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, and most importantly, ensuring that community-based education and empowerment opportunities are available to people who are stigmatized, marginalized, and socially isolated. Everyone needs opportunities to engage in a community. That's why we want you to spread courageous conversations far and wide. In today's session, we're going to provide an overview of what the ripple effect is all about. Then we're going to give you time to brainstorm the who, what, where, when, and why of a potential intervention, something you might do in your community to implement a courageous conversation. Then we'll share some planning tools that you can use to develop your ideas. When we meet again on July 25th, we'll use a coaching model to support your efforts. So let's get started.
All right, so you may have noticed that we are doing something a little different than our usual slides tonight. We are going to help you explore the website as we go. So we know a lot of you have already been exploring our website. So what we're going to click on is the Education tab on the Courageous RI website for a high-level overview of the 3 programs that we offer. So it says here, help us counteract violent extremism using the power of media literacy, active listening, and dialogue and discussion. This program is competitive. People who live or work in Rhode Island get highest priority for limited spots. Funding is also available to support participant leaders in these programs, thanks to a grant from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So the projects we're launching in the fall and winter include a professional development program and the student media contest. So these are programs specially designed for secondary school teachers and college professors and their students. And we're thrilled that so many of you have already indicated some interest in participating in these programs by completing the indication of interest form. Some of you may have already received an email indicating that you've been accepted into the PD program, and others are completing the survey that asks you to supply more information. So we'll be rolling out admissions through July and August, and if you're here, you'll be notified before September.
Thanks, Catherine. Today's session, we're talking specifically about the Courageous Conversations ripple effect. Notice under that category, it says educators, librarians, or community members offer students, teachers, library patrons, or local residents the opportunity to participate in a structured series of courageous conversation discussion sessions in either face-to-face or online formats. This program is open to everyone. You can host a session or a series of sessions for any target audience in a school, library, church, workplace, or any other community context. You can also choose to host your program in person or online. If it's online, we might ask if you want to open it up to others interested in the topics you'll be covering. This is a good way to add the diversity of perspectives that makes for rich conversations, but it's totally up to you. Admission to this program is also competitive. If you haven't already, click on the link in the chat to indicate your interest in participating in this program. Again, thanks to our funder, the Department for Homeland Security. Hosts who implement one discussion session will get, who are chosen to implement one discussion session, get a $50 stipend and receive $50 for every subsequent session, up to a maximum payment of $300. If you work with a partner, your partner gets the same stipend. Now, if we scroll down on that page, Catherine, you can see the 4 stages that we've created of planning and implementing the ripple effect. First is attend the planning program sessions. That's this one and the next one on July 25th. If you can't attend, we'll invite you to watch the video recording for the key ideas. Second, plan your program. We'll give you a lot of resources, but it's your plan. We hope you will work with a partner, since teamwork helps us be courageous and shares the workload. And at the Media Education Lab, we're very much into the power of 2. Notice that you can post a notification on our Padlet wall if you're looking for a particular partner on a particular subject or in a particular community or area. And third, market and implement the program. That is the fun part. And then the last step is documenting the work. So this Courageous RI is a research project as well as an implementation project. And we want to show our funders what works and what doesn't. So we really want you to tell us what happened when you did your ripple effect. And once you give us some paperwork that we will give you the outline for, you can start planning the next session that we hope you'll host. So at this point, I want to share a personal story about my own recent impromptu rippling effort. So the church that I attend here in Providence has summer services with talks that are led by lay people, usually from the church community. So I offered to do one on courage in a time of fear, in which I'd share what we were learning together in Courageous RI. Just before leaving my home that Sunday morning, I decided to print up a simple sign-up sheet just in case anyone was interested in learning more through some ripple sessions I could hook them up with. Under headings of name, email address, and their preference of an inline or in-person, online or in-person session, I added 8 blank lines. When I gathered my materials to go home, the sheet had 15 names on it. It was that easy to gather a ripple effect audience. And since then, because I think our church group would benefit from some diverse perspectives, I've written to the pastor of our local partner church, a nearby African Methodist Episcopal congregation, to see if his church community might want to join us in this ripple event. Over to you, Catherine.
Awesome. So now let's take some time for Q&A. So we'd love for you to ask anything that's on your mind as you consider your own ripple effort. So Pam and I will document these questions. Maybe Pam, if you can take the lead verbally, and I'll do some typing for us.
Sure.
So you can speak out loud or you can put them in the chat. There are likely to be questions that we don't have answers to just yet because we've never run a program quite like this before. And as we've said over and over again, we're building the airplane as we fly it. So your questions will help us ensure that we're addressing your needs. So no question is off limits. The floor is open.
So just raise your hand, or it actually helps if you go down to the reactions, the menu at the bottom, go to reactions and put up the raise hand symbol, because that puts you to the top of the line and we get to see you better that way without having to roll through all of your faces or names. Who's got a question about this ripple effect thing that we're asking you to be courageous about? Come on, somebody's got to have a
I see Mary Ellen has her hand up.
Mary Ellen does have her hand up. Unmute yourself and go for it, Mary Ellen.
Thank you. So I am thinking through how I might implement one of these with high school students and undergraduate students. And I am anticipating that things might get heated in a way that classroom discussions sometimes do. And I am wondering what kind of resources there might be for mediating things if things get hot. I mean, I also am thinking about intentionally reaching out to people who I disagree with fundamentally. And I am excited by the prospect, but I am also a little afraid that it might turn into a shouting match. I wonder if you've had experience with that or if you have thoughts or suggestions about that.
Yeah, you know, we have been so incredibly pleased with how the courageous conversations that we've held, and we've held 18 of them since March 7th, how civil they have been. And I think that a major special sauce in the ingredients were the guidelines that we will read before we go into our small group discussions even today, that ask people to be civil and to speak from their own experience and avoid things like name calling or whatever. And the other thing I think is that in our facilitator guide, because we had the same concerns, Mary Ellen, before we started these conversations, our facilitator's guide gives a lot of help on how to redirect people that are getting into that space. But your best friend is going to be guidelines. When I worked in a high school, and even when I worked with police or inmates in a prison, I always start with guidelines. So a way that and I often let them help create them. How do we want to treat each other in this workshop so that we can get things done? And it usually works really, really well. And sometimes with kids especially, I would say at the end, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do we do following the guidelines today? Because there'll always be somebody in the class who'll say, well, I'm not going to give us a 10 because we did have that one time where. So I think guidelines are going to be your best friend.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Obviously, you're all going to get a chance to ask your questions and talk about the things that you're thinking about in your ripple effect event in your small groups. But we wanted to get some questions out now just to see what major questions you might have or concerns. Anyone else? Hands up. I'm not seeing any.
I suppose, Pam, maybe there may be some more questions after the small groups if we want to save that time now and come back to it.
Yeah, let's get on with the with showing what we're going to show next.
Oh, sure. I do see Diane has her hand up though.
Oh, okay.
Before we move on.
Go ahead, Diane. You have to unmute.
I got it. I put a question in the chat and I just saw it. So you're starting in the fall and continue through the spring. Okay, I just saw it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
That's a good question. I wasn't even sure about that myself until I saw it in print.
Thank you,
But
Catherine.
we are going to try and take August off, even though I have a feeling we're still going to be working. We're trying to take a little hiatus in between our programs.
As if. As
All right.
if.
I see Carol
Yes.
with her hand up.
Carol, go ahead.
I guess I wonder what kinds of questions do you start with when you're going to get a group together?
Yeah, well, you'll see, Carol, when you explore the website, that we give you a focus question for every single session that we're offering for you to do with, to ripple out, to do with other people. So many of the people that are on this call have been to one of our sessions. We had 9 topics, and then we had 2 sessions for each topic, which is why we had 18 sessions that we've completed. But if Catherine can go to events on our website, she can scroll down and you can see that for every session that we had, so this is the What is Courageous Rhode Island was our launch event, but this is like the very first one, Why Media Literacy Matters. And then you'll see that underneath there, we're giving a whole lot of information but the question that was started at the top is the focus question. What is media literacy and how can it help people to respond to disinformation and hoaxes? So then what we've added here that we didn't have when we were doing the conversations in program 1 are actually some little snippets from those conversations. So we recorded our sessions and we pulled out some really good examples of somebody really trying to think about what the questions of media literacy. So those will be the other big questions you'll be using, Carol, is the 5 questions of media literacy that are a big part of this. Catherine, can you push on that? Can hear the Michelle comment?
Sure, but I figure that question might actually be a good transition into showing off these resources and sort of introducing them from the start.
Sure.
All right, so thanks all for your valuable questions, and we may have a little time at the end too if you have any others that come up. But before we break into small groups, I just want to make sure that you see the kind of resources that we'll be providing you with as you imagine yourself hosting a courageous conversation. So here on our website, if you click on events, these will go away as they come and pass. And so you'll see that we have 9 topics, and these were the different sessions that we covered, starting with why media literacy matters. So we're in the process of assembling all the resources you'll need to plan and implement each session. We don't have all of the resources ready quite yet, but they will be in place by September 1st. So to see what we're offering to help you ripple, let's look at session 1, why media literacy matters. And so I clicked on the button that said learn more. And so at the top is a little image and a blurb about the program. So if you offer this courageous conversation, you can use the image and the blurb in your promotion. And then you see the focus question that Pam was just talking about. What is media literacy and how can it help people respond to disinformation and hoaxes? So down below is content that will be useful for community members. So for example, this video summary is really cool. It basically is a 12-minute video of key ideas, perfect for starting a conversation. So if you want to keep it simple and easy, you could introduce the topic, play this informational video, review the discussion guidelines, and then break into discussion groups. And then, as we also did, you could come back together to share some key takeaways and resources. But if you want to do more yourself, there's an instructional portion outline and the topic PowerPoint slides as well. And so you have those options there. There's also a reading you can use for additional exploration. And for educators, we have even more potential materials, including connections to state standards, other creative expression and inquiry methods for exploring this topic with middle school, high school, and college students. And further down, we have some great resources to help you build your own knowledge. So along with a supportive online community and personalized coaching, we think that many of you will be very successful in rippling a courageous conversation or even a series of conversations. So yeah, so now we'll break into our small groups for some playful brainstorming. We're inviting you to imagine yourself hosting a courageous conversation. What can you imagine doing in your school, your workplace, your church, your community organization? Now, like we said earlier, there's no commitment here, we're just brainstorming. But in your small group discussion, I'll put the questions in the chat. You can choose to respond to any or all of these questions. The first one being, what group of people or target audiences might you have access to? Why might a courageous conversation be valuable for them? Who might you partner with? And what value could they add to the initiative? Which topics do you think would be most relevant to your audience? When would be the best time for you to implement your courageous conversation? And which is best for you, online dialogue or face-to-face? So before we break into the small groups, I just want to remind you all of our guidelines. If you've been to our courageous conversations, you know the deal, but these guidelines help us enact small acts of kindness in the way that we interact with others. So they apply both to our live Zoom conversations and in the chat. So here's a quick review for newcomers. Speak for yourself and out of your own experiences while recognizing that your words have an impact. Please be respectful. Allow others to do the same. Third, share the time. Allow others to finish speaking and take turns. We always run out of time, so consider waiting for others to contribute before speaking a second or third time. Stay curious. Ask honest questions when you need clarification. Don't be afraid of silence. Pause. Take time for reflection. Practice active listening and listen for understanding. Assume good intentions, and when it's applicable, notice what feelings might come up for you when others are speaking. And finally, stay with us if you can. Maybe you want to close some unnecessary programs or applications or notifications, whatever it is, so you can be fully present. So I believe we'll have our rooms opening momentarily. Join the discussion and we'll see you soon.
Have fun. Join a group.
Hi, Pam. You're muted, but I'm surprised to see you here.
Welcome back, everyone.
I told you it was going to be amazing if I make it through. But I somehow left the meeting. Sorry to my group.
That's all right. You're back just in time.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see
So,
if I can get myself back on track now.
all right. Well,
Yeah, welcome back, everyone, and thank you for those great conversations. Before we start our key takeaways, we want to ask you the question to add the to answer the question on a little poll that we're going to pop up now. So the question is, what was a key takeaway for you from this session? And it could be any part of the session, the breakout room or the introduction. We're going to give you a couple minutes to fill this out. No one can see your answers except you. A key takeaway would be anything that resonated with you, some point that really stuck in your mind, something you want to take forward. You can finish up in the next 15 seconds. We'll move on. Okay. And if you haven't finished, you could always private message me in the text, in the chat to finish up your point if you can't finish it here. So our second question is, now on a scale of 1 to 7, how confident do you now feel about helping to counteract violent extremism using the power of media literacy, active listening, and dialogue and discussion? We can leave that poll up
All
for a
right.
while. Catherine, you want to?
Yeah, thanks for completing the poll, everyone. So now we'll take a little bit of time to share some reflections. So we'd like to hear some of those key insights that emerged either from our introduction to Rippling or from your small group discussion. So the question is, what was something that really resonated with you? And you can either use the reaction button to raise your hand visually, or put your response in the chat. I would love to ask 2 or 3 people to comment. What helpful ideas came up in your discussion?
Yes,
I see.
Anshal.
I would say that what I really noticed is that we have a lot of different kind of backgrounds and groups that are out there that we are targeting. And the best beauty is that we all have some expertise. So it doesn't need to be that, oh, I am going to be going only in my group, but somehow I see I have a challenge in my group. I can pull out one of my other team members over here and ask them to help me over there. So it's more supportive. And so if we are taken by surprise for something, I don't have that knowledge about that group, but I know that my other member has that knowledge and they can kind of play that with me, and that just makes the whole space a little much better. And so I definitely see that we have a lot of variety of knowledge over here, and we just need to learn how to use it the right way. So instead of feeling
Absolutely.
overwhelmed, like, oh, how do we do this? It's like, okay, we are getting there. Like, that was my feeling.
Excellent.
Absolutely. We're all about collaboration.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, in our small group discussion, one of the people that is here for the very first time, hadn't attended any of the Courageous Conversations before, was a little concerned about maybe emotions running high and divisions coming out in the Courageous Conversations. And we shared our experience that, because I think of the guidelines, but I think also the power of 2, the having a partner with you, because if somebody does break one of the guidelines and attacks you, you're going to have an emotional reaction. And it's really good to have somebody, a sidekick there, to say, let me point out our guideline number 4. We don't do that kind of behavior in these conversations. Can we hear from someone else now? And
Yeah, I think
we really haven't had too many problems at all, have we, Catherine?
no. I think we might have time for one more. Someone else that would like to share a key takeaway?
All right, they're
All right,
going to
well,
give us.
that's fine. We want to end on time anyway. Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, so let's get right into where, before we go, as always, we always have some follow-up action steps that you can take. So as we mentioned earlier, we've placed all the slides, the links, the readings, and the videos for all 9 Courageous Conversation sessions on the website under the events tab. So especially for those of you who have never been to a Courageous Conversation, we really hope you'll start exploring the website, looking at those sessions, getting a sense of which ones. We're happy to have you do more than one. In fact, we'd love it if you do more than one, which ones you'd like to take on, and start with one and let your audience decide whether they would like to have another one. My guess is that they probably will. In general, it's a good way to see all of our resources and to stay connected to our effort is by going to the website. There are blog posts there and podcasts related to our topics, including one about rippling. And the education tab is where you'll find descriptions of our professional development for educators starting in the fall and the student media contest coming soon after that. You can also review the 4 stages on how to ripple and our facilitator guide, which is still a work in progress. We'll show you, there's a ripple guide that takes you through more details of those 4 stages. And then there's a facilitator guide that shows you how we prepare our facilitators for the discussion part. You can read that guide and we'll keep refining it based on your feedback. Start thinking about potential partners so that you can deploy the magic that we call the power of 2. And if you're interested in learning more about preventing youth radicalization, the Southern Poverty Law Center has a really nice comprehensive guide. All of these resources are being put under today's topic, the ripple effect. So you can find these that I'm mentioning now there. And start reading over the ripple effect guide and filling in your event details sheet when it becomes available. We'll be sending you a sheet that will have all the steps you need to take and the things you need to think about, and you can start filling that in so that you feel more confident about where you're going. And don't forget to register for the July 25th session, Becoming a Superhero, because that's what we think all of you who are thinking about rippling and keeping the conversations going are. You're our superheroes. So we'll continue our planning support for your ripple effect activities.
Yes, and during the Courageous Conversation sessions, we've shared what we think are some effective ways to prevent targeted violence. We believe that courageous conversations must be part of local conversations all across Rhode Island, around the country, and around the world to help reduce the hate that leads to violence. We've learned so much through these conversations, and we hope you have too. So that's why we're beginning a new chapter in Courageous Rhode Island. So remember, funding is available to support leadership and participation in all of these Year 2 programs. So if you're interested, click on that link in the chat. And thanks to those of you who have already expressed interest.
And if you took the pre-test and attended at least one courageous conversation, remember, please, to take that post-test survey before tomorrow morning and earn your extra $50 gift card. That link is in the chat as well. We hope to see you in 2 weeks on July 25th to continue our ripple effect planning and support. Bye-bye. Ciao for now.
Thanks everyone.
For coming.